Hi everyone. I've been playing around with the turret that comes with the Mark II Heartskeer kit, and I have a few observations I wanted to share with you. Now, I've heard a lot of opinions from people that were obviously made before they even had the chance to actually use it in game, and unfortunately I ended up being one of those people. And I noticed that most of those opinions fell into one of two groups. There were individuals who felt that this turret was just OP for the sake of being a new weapon and that it would get nerfed really soon, and that was the category that I fell into. And then there were the people who were saying that it really didn't matter how powerful its turret's weapons were because the projectiles that they shot had such a slow velocity that they wouldn't even be able to hit a Cutlass Black even if it shut down its engines first and pulled its pants down for you. So I decided to try this out for myself. And no, not the pants part. I took the Super Hornet into Arena Commander and armed it with its default loadout and the Heartseeker turret and decided to run through a few rounds of Pirate Swarm. And then after that, I played as much of the Endless Vandal Coronary Simulator as I could handle, and I ended up getting spanked like over and over again. So after I was finished with my ear-piercingly loud bout of Tourette's, I decided that I hadn't nearly had my limit of masochistic gameplay yet, so I moved on and did some bounty hunting missions, and then even tried my hand at doing some PvP, which, spoiler alert, didn't go so well. And it was at that moment while soothing my fragile ego with a generous supply of comfort food and anti-burn cream that it hit me. I had been using these weapons the wrong way the entire time. Everybody's opinion about it had completely missed the mark. It's not OP or bad at hitting targets. Rather, it is, but not in the derogatory way that they branded it as being. So I fired up Spotify and started playing Eye of the Tiger on a loop in the background and decided to have my 80s montage comeback moment. I found that if you learn how to use this turret, it can end up being a beast of a weapon, but it has rules and you need to learn how to respect them. And at some point back in the day, the devs described our model for space combat as being the equivalent to knife fighting with ships, and this weapon takes that concept to a new level. And the first thing that I had to do was to not start firing until after I was just meters away from the enemy. Practically to the point where I could not only see the whites of the pilot's eyes, but so I could also watch him mouth obscenities at me while I was tearing his ship into pieces. And the second biggest mistake I was making was because of my loadout and how my pips were set up, I had 3 markers, and before I was not waiting for all 3 of them to turn green before I opened fire, so I was wasting a lot of ammunition and missing with most of my shots. Ideally, I should have gone back and fixed my loadout so that all my gunfire had the same trajectory and speed, but I didn't have time for that. Eye of the Tiger was burning in my ears, so I just bit my lip, and while I was lining up my shot, I waited for that moment where all 3 of my pips turned green before I unleashed hell on my target. And after I did, they would disintegrate within seconds. And the Heartseeker's turret is OP, but only if you respect its limitations. So in classic Star Citizen fashion, if you don't know how to use this weapon, then you're going to end up wasting a lot of ammunition and a lot of time, while your opponent isn't going to hesitate for a second to capitalize on all your mistakes. Unfortunately, a ballistics loadout is always going to be problematic for PvE gameplay. At least it will be until they start implementing things like ammo boxes or whatever else it is that they plan on using to fill that role. And if you don't know what that is, they've talked about this for a while now, and an ammo box would essentially be a magazine but for a ship-sized ballistic weapon. At least that's the basic idea. And ballistics are a lot more of a viable option for PvP, but I personally don't like having to go resupply after every fight, and the looming threat of running out of ammunition during a particularly drawn-out battle is something that I do not want to have to contend with. And I feel that ballistics is a mechanic that still needs a lot of work before it ends up becoming what they want it to be. However, the Heatseeker's turret is a fun weapon that gives me that same giddy feeling that the Mantis did the first time I used it back in the day. But for now, it's going to keep being a novelty that helps you tear through things like Arena Commander, where the ammo supplies are plentiful and the consequences to your actions are non-existent. Now, that's going to be my rant on the Heartseeker's turrets. I've been your host, Law of the West. Thanks for watching, and take care.